Hi, I'm Gary.
And I'm Edwin.
And this is Video Plaza, and this is a new show for you watchers out today, our new series of videos that we're going to do, and it's going to be called
Retro Replicas,
where we look at and dissect, some of the remakes that are out there in cinema.
Remakes, reboots, probably primarily focused on horror, but we'll cover other things as well.
Yeah, and for this show today, we are going to start with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake from 2010.
Yeah, so you have the first Nightmare on Elm Street, which was released in 1984 and directed by Wes Craven. And we, in a sense, will be cutting back and forth, comparing the two, and maybe aspects that we liked of the remake, comparatively to the original. Obviously, the original, for the most part, is going to maybe, be better in essence than the remake.
Well, it definitely is in this video, in this case. So, yes, 2010, A Nightmare on Elm Street is directed by Samuel Bayer, starring Jackie Earle Haley as the titular character Freddy Krueger, originally played by Robert Englund in the original Wes Craven. Also starring Rooney Mara as the main heroine.
As the final girl.
As the final girl.
Yeah.
Which...
and Rooney Mara's...
Nancy, obviously in the original, you had Nancy, and she's playing Nancy in here.
Funny enough, she was in, talking about remakes, she was in the Dragon Tattoo remake as well.
She was, which has been remade again. Or is it technically not a remake because it's just part of the same book series, but not a book that's been adapted yet?
Yes, I think it's something.
So it's a reboot, not a remake. So we might cover that eventually, or some of the remakes or reboots.
Yeah.
This is, not one that I had fond memories of. I watched it at the cinema. I got a bit excited because I do like, the actor that they've got in.
Who did a great job as Rorschach in Watchmen.
The Watchmen,
Yeah.
And I still don't think he was a bad choice. I just think that after you've had Robert Englund for so long and been so memorable for so long, that it's very hard to replace someone who's so ingrained in a film series and as a character.
I think overall, I think there's a lot to kind of say as negatives more than there are positives. I think the main thing, just sort of right off the bat in terms of looking at the film overall, is that it treads a very fine line with the material and the concept of abuse and burn victims and things like that. There were things that made me feel slightly uneasy because it wasn't stylized in the way that the original Nightmare on Elm Street is, because I think the original Nightmare on Elm Street is kind of the epitome of a form of boogeyman kind of thing.
They played down a lot of his more child obsessive traits, to be fair, in the original films.
Yes,
They do point more at him being predatory towards children more, I think, in this one.
Yes, and the fact that because I watched it with my sister. My sister was in the room. We ended up watching it.
She was just in the room.
She's just in the room, just silently. But we both agreed that the remake version of Freddy Krueger, in terms of stylistically and
it's a lot more realistic.
His appearance, it is more realistic, but the downside of that is that you end up creating a slightly sort of insensitive portrayal of burn victims, almost like it's something that was too never, accurate. Yeah. It's not as stylized as we get, especially with Robert Englund's very distinct facial features.
They shine through. The thing is, Jackie, like I always keep screwing up his name. Jackie Earle Haley, without the makeup, he does look a little bit weird.
True.
So with the makeup, it's just kind of like doubly, whereas Robert Englund looks like a normal guy without the makeup.
Yeah.
Whereas, Jackie doesn't.
I thought as well that there were issues in terms of the pacing in terms of
very, very slow at the beginning.
Yeah,
Spoilers ahead, obviously. At the beginning, I don't know, they were trying to set it up as that other girl would be the final girl.
Yes.
Until they killed her off.
The blonde head.
But obviously, being in the audience, you realise, but she's not called Nancy. She can't be the final girl because Nancy's the final girl in the original. But then part of you also thinks, but maybe they're doing this to kind of screw with you.
Yeah.
But no, it was just. But I suppose they were a little bit trying to screw with you. But maybe I think they put too much kind of character development into the other girl too early, when really it's not her film.
Yeah. I think as well is that in terms of, obviously we'll be talking about other remakes within the course of this video series, is that they were trying their best to replicate iconic moments like the bathtub scene.
Yeah. Also the friend being dragging herself around in a body bag.
Nancy being asleep and him coming through the wallpaper, kind of like pushing through
that wallpaper scene did my head in a little bit, because look at The Frighteners, which is a film that's probably 15 years older than A Nightmare on Elm Street, and they had creatures kind of like coming through the walls, and it looked better in that than it did in this Nightmare on Elm Street remake. In fact, it looked stupid in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
Because I'm not quite sure, was when I think about other remakes, I think that they're more just trying to capture the essence of the story and the character. They're not trying to replicate exact scenes kind of thing. And this sort of reminded me a bit of when they did that, which obviously is in a whole league of its own, but the whole shot-for-shot remake of Psycho, for example. It was
with Vince Vaughn.
With Vince Vaughn, yeah. They were trying to.
They did it shot for shot, but it was terrible.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because it didn't have the heart of the original.
You can't replicate perfection, or
exactly.
Or you can't replicate something that's fond memories people have.
Yeah, I think the film would have benefited if it had created its own iconic moments.
It needed a proper visionary director. I mean, the guy who directed it has not directed a film since and hadn't directed a film prior. He's mainly billed as a music video director. He's done a few for Justin Timberlake even. Samuel Bayer he's called, and he's not done anything since or before that's not been that's not been a music video or a short.
Okay.
He's done shorts and music videos since then, but he's not done any features.
Yeah, which isn't
from what I can tell.
Yeah, which isn't to say that
he wasn't the best of directors, but he wasn't the best of directors for this film.
Yeah.
Maybe he is a good director in music video.
Which isn't to say that someone who's had their beginnings outside of film, like if you take Ridley Scott, for example, he was someone who was a director of adverts.
George Romero had the same start as well. He had his own company.
So that's not any marks against him, but obviously
he wasn't suited at the time.
Yeah.
Maybe he's different now. Maybe he could go back and do it, and he might do a better job.
And to use a nice little pun based on us being Video Plaza, the tail of the tape as well, looking at his filmography, it clearly hasn't done anything since. So that speaks volumes in terms of, how... Yeah,
but he could have just thought, bugger that, I'm not doing that again.
True. You might have gone down a different pathway career-wise, who knows, but...
So, visually, I never thought of Wes Craven as a very visual director. He was a competent director and by the numbers director. I always thought when it came to visuals, I thought he was more of an ideas man. But then when you watch the Nightmare on Elm Street remake and compare it to the original, the visuals in the original are actually so far superior to the remake.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you never saw Wes Craven as a visual director.
Well, speaking of which, was something that I was thinking about, knowing that we were going to have this discussion, is that I think there's a lot to say about remakes that are initially from the standpoint where the first film was an adaptation of an original work. So, for example, if we were discussing Pet Sematary, the 80s original, and then Pet Sematary, the remake, they all come from the same core, the same foundation, which is Stephen King kind of thing. While with Nightmare on Elm Street, it's a bit of a closed circle whereby the director, writer, the vision behind it was Wes Craven, and you're trying to create a remake whereby you haven't got that individual connected to
A lot of the
anymore,
things
sort
that
of thing.
people remember from the Nightmare on Elm Street series aren't necessarily from the first film. That not necessarily ideas or visuals that people remember as done by Wes Craven. So you're remaking the first one, and you're taking inspiration from the original film, but not the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Because you're going back to basics of actual horror.
But do you agree?
Whereas other ones are more comedic.
But do you agree or like disagree that in a sense that because when you're doing a remake whereby you're in the same sense as the people who did the first film going to the source material and creating an adaptation, so essentially
in this
yours
way
is an adaptation / reboot kind of thing, while
you're
here,
remaking the source material rather than using the source material.
yes, exactly,
like a book.
Yeah, you're
Because it's like with Pet Sematary, you've got the book to draw from and the original film.
yeah, and in essence as well is you can always say that, you know, at the end of the day you're just trying to give the book a whole new interpretation, while with this you're literally trying to replicate and imitate what someone else has done,
kind
which
of
is
like an adaptation as opposed to a remake of an existing film.
Especially if it's got one person who's heavily associated.
Yeah,
with
I mean,
it,
I don't even think Wes Craven even produced this, whereas like the Hills of Eyes remake, which was really good, Wes Craven did actually produce that. So he had some creative input. I mean, this was done, I think, by Platinum Dunes.
It was, yeah.
And a lot of their remakes were dire. We will probably be saying the words Platinum and Dunes quite a lot in this series of videos.
Yeah.
But anyway, what would you score this? We normally do out of 10 VHSs.
We'll keep doing out of 10 VHSs. I would obviously say, you know, if I was talking about them side by side, I would say the original for me is definitely like an 8 out of 10. It definitely has a bit of room for improvement here.
I mean, 8 out of 10, but you're not taking into account what you remember of the film, as in the legacy of a film isn't indicative of how much you score it.
No. Yeah. But I was just sort of giving a sense and an essence of like comparison side by side. Why I would give.
Yeah, we're talking about pure sitting down and watching a film as a film.
Yeah. While I'd give the remake like a 5 out of 10, something like that.
No, that's fair.
I think it suffers from, like we said, pacing problems. Also, for anyone who wasn't familiar with the franchise whatsoever, I think they would become instantly switched off because it doesn't really elaborate very much as to what's going on. You do feel quite sort of lost, and yeah, there's other aspects like I've said. But.
I would agree with you on the original and say about an 8 out of 10, but that is scoring on a basis of being able to sit down and watch it as a film. Nothing to do with a legacy or you know, any nostalgia I have towards it. That's just simple, straightforward sitting down and watching it. And I will score the remake in the same way and forget all the hatred I had for it back in the day and just score it as is, and I would probably say more like maybe a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, 5 out of 10. Was there any redeeming kind of like qualities? Because obviously with this video series, probably some remakes we might be quite fond of, and we might, not for nostalgic reasons, just as purely objectively as a film. So we might begin our discussion with talking about the positives, whereby others will talk about the negative. Yeah. So is there positives from
the positives are that it was a early role for Rooney Mara, who is actually a really, really good actress. And it gave her a chance to kind of like be at the forefront of a film.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I would definitely commend the film for was the fact that it was very, compared to the original, very direct with the kills kind of thing. Because there has been sort of individuals kind of like joking, especially other YouTube sort of channels talk about how long it takes for Freddy Krueger to get past his first kill onto his second kill kind of thing. While this one was much more gruesome in that respect. That was
one thing that he kind of did at least half right.
Yeah.
So yes, this has been our new segment.
Yes, which is Retro Replicas.
I didn't forget that whatsoever. And this will be a continuing series, so if you want to listen to this again or be notified, then subscribe and like to this video, please. And
please. Yeah.
Please.
And all our social medias at the bottom, including our email address. So, if you do want us to cover anything particular, then do let us know.
Any suggestions of future bad movies for this segment, and email them over at videoplazapodcast@gmail.com, or, whiz us a message on our Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for listening.